Before the laughter, before the memes, before his name became shorthand for excess and misjudgment, there was a man who believed, almost violently, in the power of loyalty. Steve Ballmer did not enter Microsoft as a visionary founder. He entered as a believer. He believed in Bill Gates. He believed in the mission. He believed that intensity could substitute for elegance, that effort could overpower doubt. In the early days, Microsoft was not yet a monument. It was chaotic, aggressive, paranoid about being overtaken. And Steve fit perfectly. He was loud when others were quiet, relentless when others hesitated, uncomfortable in his own body yet fearless about taking space. That made him invaluable. But it also planted the seed of everything that would later be used against him. As Microsoft grew into an empire, the culture hardened. Competition was everywhere. Internal battles were constant. Winning mattered more than being liked. Steve thrived in that environment. He ran sales with ferocity. He pushed teams beyond comfort. He demanded commitment that felt personal. People either loved him or recoiled. There was rarely anything in between. When Bill Gates stepped aside, the world expected evolution. What it got was amplification. Steve Ballmer became CEO at a moment when technology was changing faster than Microsoft's instincts. The internet was no longer a feature, it was the foundation. Mobile computing was emerging. Design mattered. User experience mattered. Microsoft, under Steve, did not pivot gracefully, and the world noticed. Criticism grew louder. Analysts mocked missed opportunities. Competitors surged ahead. Journalists painted a picture of stagnation. Steve became the face of it all. Not just the leader, the symbol. His public persona didn't help. The sweat-drenched stage performances, the shouting, the unfiltered enthusiasm that felt out of place in an era shifting toward minimalism and restraint. Developers, developers, developers. The clip went viral for all the wrong reasons. What people saw was ridiculousness. What they didn't see was desperation. Steve wanted belief back, from employees, from investors, from himself. Inside Microsoft, the pressure mounted. Products launched late. Mobile strategies faltered. Acquisitions confused rather than clarified. Every misstep reinforced the narrative. He wasn't the right man. He didn't get it. He was holding the company back. Failure, when it happens publicly, has a special cruelty. It doesn't stay contained. It becomes entertainment. Steve Ballmer read the headlines. He heard the jokes. He felt the shift in tone. But he did not quit. Not because he was blind, because he was stubborn. And because he believed that abandoning the company would mean confirming what the world already thought. That belief cost him more than anyone saw. The job consumed him. The criticism followed him home. Sleep became shallow. Joy became rare. He had given his adult life to Microsoft. Now it looked like that life might end in humiliation. And yet, even in that moment, there was something quietly forming beneath the surface, something the world wasn't watching. A different kind of reckoning. Leadership has a way of narrowing your world. As criticism intensified, Steve's circle shrank. Advice became cautious. Honesty softened. People began telling him what would keep the peace, not what would challenge the course. That isolation is subtle at first. Meetings still happened, decisions still moved forward, but something vital was missing. Tension without friction. And without friction, mistakes repeat. Steve could feel it. The company he loved was no longer listening the way it once had. Not to the market, not to younger engineers, not even to itself. Microsoft had become large, defensive, slow to admit error. And Steve, as CEO, carried that weight personally. Every missed wave, mobile, search, social, felt like a public verdict on his judgment. Every competitor's rise felt like comparison he could not escape. He responded the only way he knew how, by pushing harder, more meetings, more urgency, more force. But pressure cannot replace clarity. Inside him, doubt began to surface, not about his effort, but about his fit. He had never pretended to be a designer. He was not a product romantic. He was an operator, a builder of teams, a believer in execution. The industry had shifted toward intuition and taste, and Steve felt out of step. That realization hurt more than the headlines, because it forced a painful question. What if loyalty and intensity are not enough? What if the skills that build an empire are not the ones that renew it? He did not voice this publicly. Leaders rarely do. But privately, the cost was accumulating. Stress showed up physically, emotionally, in moments of exhaustion that no amount of adrenaline could fix. Then came the decision everyone saw coming, but few understood. Steve stepped down, not in disgrace, not in triumph, in exhaustion. The world framed it as removal, as correction, as the end of an era that had gone stale. For Steve, it felt like loss. Loss of identity, loss of purpose, loss of the place where he had poured decades of his life. Leaving Microsoft was not liberation, it was grief. He walked away knowing history would likely be unkind, that his tenure would be remembered for what didn't happen, not what did. And he had to sit with that. No stage, no applause, just space. And space can be terrifying when you've spent your life filling it with work. Yet, in that silence, something unexpected happened. Without the need to defend himself daily, Steve could finally listen. Not to critics, to himself. Silence is honest. When Steve Ballmer left Microsoft, the noise didn't disappear overnight. Opinions lingered, narratives hardened, but for the first time in decades, he was no longer required to answer them. No earnings calls, no press conferences, no constant need to justify decisions made years earlier. That absence was unsettling. His calendar, once packed to the minute, opened into long, unstructured days. For someone who lived on intensity, this felt like withdrawal. Without a title, a dangerous thought surfaced. Who am I when I'm not leading something massive? At first, he tried to stay busy. Boards, advisory roles, quiet involvement behind the scenes. But distraction doesn't heal identity. What he needed was distance, not from Microsoft, but from the version of himself that believed leadership meant control. Gradually, perspective returned. Steve began to see his tenure not as a verdict, but as a chapter. Microsoft hadn't failed. It had evolved past a phase, and he hadn't been wrong, just early in some places, late in others. That distinction mattered, because failure framed as incompetence destroys confidence. Failure framed as mismatch restores it. The shift allowed him to ask a different question. Not why did I lose, but where do I still fit? The answer wasn't in software, it was in passion. For years, one thing had remained untouched by criticism or politics: sports. Competition without pretending, data without ego, outcomes that couldn't be spun. Steve found clarity there. He didn't rush back into the spotlight. He didn't try to reclaim relevance. Instead, he studied, observed, listened. And when he moved again, it wasn't to prove anything, it was to belong. Buying the LA Clippers wasn't a status play. It was a reset, no legacy to protect, no myth to defend. Just a team that had been overlooked, underestimated, dismissed. Sound familiar? He poured into it not as a savior, but as a steward. Culture before strategy, trust before tactics. This time, he didn't try to dominate the room, he built one. And slowly, perception shifted. Not because headlines changed, but because results did. The loudest lesson came quietly. Steve Ballmer didn't win back the world. He stopped needing its permission. With the Clippers, there was no inheritance of greatness, only work. Years of losing had conditioned everyone to expect disappointment. Fans, players, the league. Steve understood something from Microsoft that most owners never learn. You don't fix outcomes first. You fix the system that produces them. So he invested where cameras don't look. Facilities before stars, analytics before headlines, people before pride. He listened to players talk about what they needed, not what they could sell. He empowered staff who had been ignored. He built an environment where improvement was normal, not dramatic. And slowly, almost boring, the Clippers changed. Not perfect, not champions overnight, but real. And that mattered more. Because this time, Steve wasn't trying to prove he was right. He was trying to build something that worked without him forcing it. That's the difference between power and leadership. Power demands attention. Leadership earns trust. The world still debates his Microsoft years. They always will. But Steve Ballmer no longer stands in that debate. He moved on. Not up, not ward, but forward. And that's the real ending. The core lesson, T29. Sometimes the world won't believe in you again. So stop trying to convince it. Build quietly, let the system speak, and stand steady, even when belief is gone. Because leadership isn't about being understood, it's about standing firm until results make the noise unnecessary.